all very exciting. It's all heating up. We have some amazing producers going to join us, as well as the 3 cheeses that everybody's going to be able to taste. We've got 3 producers. We've got cider from Sharrington's in Kent. We've got Roundhouse Brewing from Melton Mowbray. Thank you, Patrick, for that. Wonderful beers. Went and saw them when I was judging at Artisan last week. We've got Druve from Tempest Charcuterie, and we've got Sambridge Barton wines from Devon. So they will be all there, as well as all the cheeses, and you'll be able to taste, all guests will be able to taste all of the cheeses and actually judge them. We've got the People's Choice, and this year we've got White Lake Cheeses are going to sponsor the People's Choice, so you can be a judge too. The tickets are there's limited tickets left, so they're available on the website on the page, and they're 50 quid, and that includes the VAT and all the booking fee and all of that malarkey. So hope to see lots of people there. I am going to, so we've got, wow, Dartmoor, east of Bristol, London, Sandy, Oregon. Wow, hello, fantastic. But do put where you're joining from in the chat. So I'm going to introduce Patrick now, who is the inspiration behind Affineur of the Year. Patrick was working at Quicks at the time, Quicks Cheddar, so that's why last year we started with just affineuring the cheddar cheeses. Patrick has now moved over to the Cheese Geek, as you can see on his t-shirt. Very nice branding, Patrick. Lovely, lovely. So Patrick's going to be hosting tonight because I need to go to yoga at about 6:45, but I am going to field your questions in the Q&A box, so please do put them in there. There's a couple of other people I'm going to introduce you to before we move over. We've got the wonderful Johnny Crickmore, who is the maker of Baron Bigod, legendary maker. What a journey. 10 years, Johnny, now. I'm going to ask you to unmute. 10 years since starting the cheese making, obviously been a farmer for a lot of years, but in a minute, Johnny, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and all about the wonderful Baron Bigod. Oh, we've got someone joined us from Tampa in Florida, York, Cheshire and Aberdeen. Love it. All over, north, south, east, west. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. So the other people I'd like to introduce you to is we've got Laura and Jessica from Curd and Cure, who are sponsoring this category. So they've sponsored the soft cheese Baron Bigod category. And after Johnny's done his bit, they're going to tell us a little bit about why they've sponsored the category and why that's really important. Fantastic. We've got Camilla joining us from Neal's Yard Dairy as well. Okay, so Patrick, I'm handing over to you. I'm going to disappear into a black hole, and I'll be here to answer your questions. So do get them up in the Q&A when you can. Okay, over to you. Enjoy, guys. Lots of love. See you on June the 14th, if not before.
Thanks, Tracy. Hi, everyone. Great to be here, and thanks to Johnny for joining us. Cheese royalty. It's really exciting to get you involved with Affineur of the Year. It's really exciting. It was sort of a thought of mine at the beginning, how we're going to sort of expand this competition and how we're going to introduce new formats, and it was really great to have such an amazing soft cheese category with Baron Bigods. So if you could tell us a little bit about the cheese that's sent out from the vat, sort of what sort of seasonal qualities and sort of the microflora or isolated yeast and molds that you would expect in that vat when you're affineuring or maturation with your cheese, and where it's sort of at this stage, 4 weeks in.
So you want sort of like the geeky stuff, yeah?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, this time of the year, the cows, this milk, what made this cheese, what you've got is from spring grazing. So we tend to see different butter fats at this time of the year. So the fat content of the cow's milk tends to go down a little bit, and the type of fat, it becomes higher in unsaturated fat through the cows eating spring grass. So what we tend to find is there's a bit more dominance of Penicillium candidum with this cheese at this time of the year, and it tends to be a little bit drier. But we're trying to make the cheese the same all year round, which is lovely, delicious. But it does change. You can't change. You can't avoid that. But it has in the past at this stage of the year been a little bit drier, so possibly maturing a little bit slower by like a few days. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see what this all turns out like.
So do you reckon that will benefit the competitors, having that a little bit slower time to sort of test them a little bit, whether they bring it on a bit quicker or a bit slower, colder temperatures? What would you sort of sit the ideal temperature and humidity for where you would keep it, and does that change through the stages of as it ages on?
Yeah, so I think it is an easy cheese to work with. The hardest cheeses are the ones that are high in moisture, and they tend to peak very young. So they kind of peak before they kind of are ready to peak, if that makes sense. So you taste them at a young age. Say like we taste the cheese about 3 weeks old, and if the cheese tastes amazing at that point, like you want to eat the cheese there and then, we know we're in trouble, because the cheese, that's when it needs to be eaten, because it doesn't get better. It just kind of like it just gets wet and like really, really strong. So it's strange, but we actually try to find, when we score the cheese at 3 weeks old, we try and we don't want to see high scores. So we want to see the cheese. It seems to always turn out the cheese which is slightly more boring at 3 weeks turns out to be the best cheese. So yeah, it's odd, isn't it? But then that's the world of cheese for you, full stop.
Low and slow. So when you wrap the cheese at a certain time, is there certain materials or different techniques you can use, or different papers or things that you could use in terms of maturation to sort of make that sort of bio within the cheese to bring it on or slow it down?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I start from the point when the cheese is like salted, so on day 2 the cheese is salted on both sides during the course of the day, and that sits in a room which is around about 16 to 17 degrees. We're not too fussed about air movement at that point, like the evaporators which control the temperature of the room have fans on them, so there is a bit of air movement. But at this point, we're not fussed. There is still quite a bit of drainage, drips coming out of like, really, in essence, is a lump of curd. But it sits there for us about 3 days in that temperature and in that environment. It's quite the cheese itself creates quite a lot of humidity in that room. And then the cheese then moves on to our sort of, for the next 2 weeks nearly, a slightly cooler temperature. For us, we like 11.5 degrees, but if it's in that sort of 10 to 12 degrees zone, it does very well. And at that stage, because the cheese is still not wrapped and put in a box, you have to be very careful with the environment, that the cheese doesn't dry out. So it's a very fine balance between seeing the right level of moisture in the room, as in you can tell by the floor and how much sort of drips are hanging on things, and if you get it wrong and it becomes too dry, the first sign of your cheese being too dry is around the edges, right on the kind of corners. So that's always a good sign to check the cheeses. Usually the top course of cheeses, the top row, and on the edges of the top row, I always go straight for those ones, and you put your finger on them and check the edge of the rind, and does that feel squidgy? And equally, you don't want to see the opposite, where there's like actual drips of moisture on the cheese. That's when the cheese is too moist. But providing you keep a reasonably still environment, then you should start to see the mold grow over the cheese over the next 2 weeks. Very often you see geotrichum starts to sort of show before the Penicillium candidum, and then gradually the PC starts to cover the geo. But you know, you tend to see those two sort of families grow together on our cheese. But you also notice, I mean, not that you guys have got like loads of cheese, you've only got probably one or two, or you know, or so, but when you've got a whole room of it, when the cheese starts growing, the mold, it can smell strong of ammonia. So you've got to be careful that you don't have too much ammonia in the room. Too much ammonia is also bad. The cheese needs to have oxygen to breathe. So it's a fine balance, and that only comes really with, you know, to get that right, it comes with experience and just doing it day in, day out, and you start to see the things which work and which don't work over the years. So you know, it's just you go in the room, smell, look at the cheeses, you know, for like those things I just said, and providing those things are all right, then your cheese is generally on the right course to be a good cheese. Do you want me to keep going with the next steps, or you?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just thinking in terms of that ammonia smell and having that circulation in the room. At certain stages, what would you do to mitigate those issues when they pop up, like extra moisture, that ammonia smell? Is it ventilation, or how do you mitigate against this?
Yeah. So again, the cheese, depending on how much cheese you make at the time of the year, that can change. And we've got three maturing rooms, and they're all different sizes. So when you Christmas time, we'll be using the bigger rooms. We'll probably be using all of the rooms, but as soon as you get into January, we turn 2 rooms off and use the little room, because the cheese likes living together. So if you get not enough cheese, there isn't enough ammonia, and you get too much cheese, there is too much ammonia. But the way you control the ammonia is you've got to have a very, you know, you've got to have a good movement of air in the building, or flexibility. So you've got to allow flexibility of increasing airflow into the building and decreasing it when there's less cheese, because you can equally dry the cheese out if you put too much air. So it's a fine balance, and ways of improving the moisture in the room is, again, if you've got few cheeses in the room, your cheese will probably get drier. So, you know, ways to avoid that is by having, you know, water on the floor, and, you know, and potentially, you know, some movement in the corner, like some people have like a teeny sort of little shower thing going, like a pump, which just like a pond pump. We did that in the very early days, but you know, small ways of getting yourself out of a muddle. But at the end of the day, the main thing is the more cheese you make, the kind of it prefers it that way. So if you've got a lot of cheese in the room, it looks after itself almost.
So I suppose what everyone sort of wants to know is when you first started, what were the sort of things that you look back and think, now what would have I done different, or you know, should I've done it this way or this way? So a lot of these guys that are entering the competition are at the beginning of their maturation sort of education and that experimental stage. So what sort of tips and advice? Is it just purely practice and just keep at it, or what would you say to your younger self?
Well, oh God, that's difficult. I mean, the trouble is you've got to learn you've got to make the mistakes to learn from them. And but you do have to have this, you have to make your maturing rooms to fit the size of your production. You can't, you know, it doesn't work very well if you think, oh, I'm planning on going to make this in 2 years' time, because your cheese, you'll never make it in 2 years' time, because your cheese will be bad from the word go. So you need to make the right size room to the right size of cheese, which you're going to make sort of imminently almost. But you need to have your rooms, you know, the things what we didn't understand to begin with were the conditions of where geotrichum and Penicillium candidum you know, what they prefer, and just not understanding both those two sort of main sets of molds and how to work with them. So there's both Geo and PC like particular kind of environment and salt levels and moisture, and so knowing that now, you know, probably made a better cheese. But I guess for me, one of the things which stands out as a game changer was when we got our fat and protein analyzer on the farm. And it was like being in the dark with the milk, what we were using. And as soon as we got that and we started recording our fat and protein in the milk each day, and we realized that why the cheese was so different, because the moisture inside the curd influences what grows on the cheese massively. So understanding how much fat is in the cheese and how much moisture is in the cheese, that would be my one thing, which if I could have gained 2 years in shit cheese.
So yeah, the little things matter, don't they? So it's all these little nuances and changes within the world of maturation that sort of benefit the end product, but it definitely comes down to good quality milk and good practice, definitely.
It doesn't, it's just got to be time. You know, you know, if you're interested in getting into cheese making, I'd recommend working in a cheese, you know, with a cheese producer, and you know, you won't make so much mistakes yourself because you'll see the right way of doing it. But it's no easy way. You've got to like do it, you know, and do it time and time again until you start seeing it.
So in terms of your cheese, what sort of flavor profile, texture are you looking for when it's ready to eat?
So, I mean, we're all different, and we all like to eat this style of cheese. And you know, some of us like to eat it younger, and some maturer. And I think that's what makes the cheese so interesting, is because you can eat it at different ages. Personally, I like to have a little bit of core. You know, so like when I say core, I mean the curly bit in the middle. So you've got the rind, and then you've got like the breakdown below the rind, and then, you know, eventually it all goes and it's just broken down and sort of like the gooey stuff. I like to see it just before that. So you've got like maybe a quarter or a third of the sort of chalky bit in the middle. Just brings more complexity to the cheese, I think.
Definitely. And in terms of age profile, how many weeks does that sort of sit in after it's been salted to get it to that sort of profile, do you think?
Again,
with all the other variables.
Yeah, there's so many. Good luck.
Yeah.
The 250 gram cheese will be more like sort of 4 weeks old. The 1 kilogram cheese will be more like 6 weeks old, and the 3 kilogram cheese will be somewhere between 6 and 7 weeks old. You know, to get that sort of, you know, perfect sort of, you know, age for sale. But I mean, they do vary through the year. You know, you can, between a drier period of the year and a period where there's more fat and moisture, you'll see a week, you know, a week, maybe even a bit more of a difference.
2 seconds.
It looks like Patrick has got a child. A child. No, you haven't got any children.
Sorry,
it
was a pickup for an order. Sorry.
Yeah, I've actually got one child come through on a scooter just then, so
oh, cool! Bring them on screen. I think we should talk to Laura anyway. And Laura, why don't you tell us? Well, Patrick's sorting out his delivery at Cheesecake.
Yeah, we'll let Patrick do his thing.
Welcome. Good job, Laura. Yoga hasn't started yet.
Oh, here it is now.
Do tell us, Laura, what you know, your kind of interest in Affineur of the Year, and thank you so much for sponsoring this category. It really means a lot to the Academy of Cheese. As you know, we're not for profit and we run on a real tight budget, so it's fantastic to have sponsors to make this event happen, and to bring it all together. So what was your sort of inspiration to come along and sponsor for us?
Well, I think Jess and I had the privilege of last year attending, and Patrick kindly invited us, and we went and we had an amazing afternoon, didn't we? And also, I think what was so incredible for us is the talent and the sheer ability to change a product that we know and we wholesale and we sell regularly, that we only know as, you know, with the flavor profile it's got. And how different, I think that's the thing that surprised us, how different with the skills of the people and also the creativity, like some of the ideas that came forward from last year. We were just blown over. And to think that this, you know, award as such is only recently been, you know, obviously kindly supported by the Academy, but only taken place, like, baffles me as well, because actually what an incredible, you know, trade and skill. So I just really want to support all of the work that you guys are doing, because I think as a wholesaler, I mean, we specialize in British cheese as well as some European, but particularly British cheeses. And I think getting that reputation and getting the awareness and the education of how amazing the talent is in the UK with our makers, producers, is so important to us. So this is just something that we felt quite passionate about. And also one of the reasons why Baron was one of the chosen categories for us is we absolutely love your product, Jonny. And we are big fans in our business. The whole team are. So yeah, we really wanted to get behind this product and see what can be done as well. So really excited about it.
It's going to be really interesting to see the results.
Yeah,
especially in the soft cheese.
Yeah,
it's going to be really,
really interesting.
exciting.
We can't wait.
Well, thank you very, very much. And it is going to be an awesome day, those finals on the 14th of June. Right, Patrick, you're back on. Have you sorted your delivery?
Back on, yeah. First
Let's-
pack fleet delivery for the gentleman, so he's a bit lost, but that's okay. I had a sign on the door.
Okay, let's hear from the competitors and see what they've been doing and if they've got any questions for Jonny. All right, good luck.
James, first, top left corner. Fire away. So,
Hey, how you doing?
yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
So, is young Justin taking the helm on this one?
Well, to be fair, it's mainly Justin, and it's a bit of me as well at the same time. We first time we've ever done Brie, so it's really exciting to be honest. I had a bit of help. I've been to France recently and been with Sue Thurman, so we've been learning about the art of affinage. I've had some help with some great books as well, with this one as well, which is really good. Teaching me how to make Brie, but importantly, I think about the temperature control and the humidity. I think the triage, which is humidity, time, and moisture within the room, has been the kind of battle that we've had. It's all been really good until this point, Jonny, as well, which has been yay, it's all working. And then all of a sudden I saw a little bit of pinking and I thought, oh shit, on one of the cheeses. And I think we got to the saturation point. So 100% humidity, and all of a sudden that kind of affected one of the cheeses. So we thought, okay, let's just take them out of there, put them into hospital for a minute. So we put them into a cold room for a moment, and we kind of jigged the room, put them back in there. We've isolated that cheese, but we also found that the condensate pipe within our cave had some moisture on it, and that may have dripped onto the cloth that we have. We have like a cloth in our cave as well, separating the soft cheeses to keep that environment running, that biome running, and may have dripped onto one of the cheeses. So it might be a bit of bee linen as well. So, you know, it's quite exciting. I don't know what to do next. I'm thinking about wrapping the cheeses now. In fact, I was on the phone to your lovely farm earlier on today, Jonny, and I said, any chance you can send me some of your cheese wrap paper, because I think I'm going to wrap them next week, which you're kindly sending me. But I'm very excited. It's been a real journey for us, and it's a privilege to be wrapping and looking after such a great cheese, and just hope it tastes amazing.
So what's the next step for the next few weeks for you guys, James?
I think we're going to take every day. Every day is the most important. It's important every day to check the cheeses, which is something that I've learned. I've had a cave now for about 1.5 years, as you know, Patrick, because I think you're one of the first to see it. And what we've learnt is by going in there, checking all of the cheeses, turning as necessary, and ensuring that the hygiene in the room is 110% at all costs, which is super, super important. And if we do see any problems, and we remedy them as soon as we possibly can, that's really important. So our next stage with the Brie is we've moved them into an area, we've covered them, not them totally, but if you can imagine in the cave, I have blankets. So we've got blankets around the area to stop any too cold blowing onto them. So we don't want them to dry out at all. And we're just battling with humidity. And at this time of year, as Johnny suggested, it's quite challenging. We don't have the risk of ammonia because we only have 5 Bries in there, and we've got other hard and crumblies inside the cave at the time. So we don't have that issue, but we do circulate the air very, very gently, which it's humidity, which is our problem. It has been rising over the last few days because we've got some sun. Where did that come from? Which is mad.
Yeah, it's getting warmer now, so that's going to definitely have an effect on the day as well too. So
Yeah.
what's the texture that you're sort of aiming for the end result?
Well, we want to go for a Johnny Crickmore if we can. We want to go for a really lovely kind of bouncy, beautifully, just beautiful with a halo which is really beautifully broken down by the penicillium and geo, with a slightly firmer center. That's ideally what I'd like to see. That would be amazing. So that's what we're aiming for. We've got 5 cheeses in there, as you know. 3 of them are performing really beautifully. One of them's got that spot on it. The other one I noticed is a little bit firmer. So I'm slightly worried that it's drying because of the last 2 days where we noticed there was an issue in there. So that's why we're trying to take evasive action to try and avoid any other issues happening in country. Or I want to keep that moisture in those cheeses. I don't want that to be lost. So that's why I'm thinking now is the time to stick something on it and keep it in a good temperature, but not too cold. There's probably 10 degrees, I'm thinking, for the next 3 or 4 weeks of its journey with us at number 2.
And just in terms of your local buyer and flora within your room, just give us a little bit of a flavor profile of the room. What's it smell like? What's it like when you walk in? What's the most evocative things that are in there?
Well, I'm guessing we've got some coralline from good old Selena cans that does give a beautiful sheepy note to the room. We've got some Westcombs that we've been aging for over 1 year in there as well. I've got about 5 or 6 Westcombs. I do have a couple of blues in there, which are isolated. There's one special one from Robin, which is for the Stilton affinage competition as well. There's an array of cheeses in there. I'd like there to be more. And I think it's really important what Johnny said, of course, with your amazing knowledge, is the fact that having more cheese in there in that room helps the other cheeses, because what we don't want is any drying. We need to have things in that room at the same time, so we are piling as much cheese in there as possible without taking it out too much. So we want to try and keep that environment still at the same time. But the smell is beautiful. It's cavey. It's gorgeous. The first thing we had on our floor in the cave, incidentally, Patrick, which was a bit of fun, was Angela, who's Selena Cairns' sister-in-law, bought me a present of whey from her gorgeous ewes, and she said, throw that on the floor and see what happens. So I threw it on the floor, and we left it in there for a few days, and it was incredible how that affected and she said, this will start your room off. So I'm hoping we've got still a touch of that, but of course we have to be really, really mindful and very careful of the cleanliness and the way that we look after the HACCP and all of the protocols that we have in place for that room.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. It sounds like it's going to be amazing. I'll move over to
thanks,
Nick.
mate. I might have to duck out because I've got to go and do a gin and cheese tasting.
Perfect. Good to see you, man.
Cheers.
I'll move over to Nick. Sorry. How are you, Nick?
I'm great. Thank you.
So where are you up to with your experiment? Any innovation or new techniques that you bring into the competition?
Not really new techniques with this one. I think when it comes to something like a Brie style cheese, well, first of all, we don't have a room specifically for maturing that. In sort of for our business, that's not one we mature so much as try to hold and then keep quality of. So we have created a space for this cheese that can be brought down. It's refrigerated space, but that we can kind of control temperature a bit. And we've also kept the cheese quite isolated with racks. So the Baron Bigods live by themselves, very much so. We were initially thinking of doing something a little bit different and maybe keeping them with some Danger Brie-de-Meaux, or maybe some other Bigods, or perhaps some Fougeroux from Reserve. But we also discussed with a really fantastic cheesemaker and Affineur, So-Young Scanlon, from Andante Dairy in California, working with a cheese that both has really a lot of kind of early geotrichum fuel going for it before it develops a lovely penicillium coat. And we determined through that, sorry for any scratching noises, my cat's being a diva right now. But we determined through that the cheese would probably be best in its own environment, creating its own humidity, because all of the microbial elements really needed for the maturation of this cheese already exist in the milk and already exist in the make of that cheese. And so the best thing we thought was to keep it with itself. We do face a little bit of a challenge in that, unlike James, who has his own business there, the lovely number 2, there are a few days every week we don't have access to our maturation room, which would be weekends and bank holidays. And we're in May, and there have been a hell of a lot of bank holidays. And so we are able to do the daily turning of the cheese, except on those times. So it was interesting to hear you talk about some of the edge drying, Johnny. Because that was a challenge we certainly faced. You know, we did start to see we were getting really, really beautiful geotrichum development and some lovely puffy penicillium. And where we started to see a little bit of an issue was just towards the edge. You know, we got this little kind of curve in and slightly more fragile edges just around the outside. They were making it a little bit difficult to flip without racks on top and bottom. So what we ended up doing is some of the cheeses, so we're lucky to have 5 of these cheeses. 3 of them we've wrapped a little bit earlier, 2 of them we've left in air, and they seem to be developing nicely. We've brought them back down in temperature and reduced humidity slightly. So it's still a good healthy humidity, but it's not really putting that geotrichum into overdrive or really develops the edge of that cheese as much. And bring it down in temperature so that the penicillium can thrive a little bit more than the geotrichum.
Awesome. And what sort of flavor notes and profile are you going for the end result?
So we carry Baron Bigod in all possible sizes at various points, and so we're very familiar with it. And what we really like is a well-developed cheese. We don't want anything slipping. We want it holding really, really nicely to that rind, and not an overdeveloped rind of it. But we really like the garlicky flavors out of that cheese. Now, I think one of the beautiful things about the Fen Farm milk is that slightly saltier, slightly more kind of garlicky thing you get out of it. And so we're looking for that. It would be lovely to have a little bit of curd that hasn't proteolized at the center. We would enjoy that. And right now that is happening. If in the course of it proteolizes fully, I would like it to be just hitting that, not really hitting that and then continuing to break down further. I don't want too much lipolysis causing flavors off of that. I'd really just like kind of it just a touch if it has broken down all the way, with little islets. That would be really ideal. We're also
really tight vermiculation on the top, yeah.
Yeah.
Not,
and we're getting lovely vermiculation on this right now. I didn't take a picture with me when I went in today, which is silly because here we are in this webinar and I just want to show off my babies. But yeah. Oh, where was I going there? Oh, we were doing one other thing, which is unlike Bigod, we're not boxing it at any point.
Okay.
So we're letting the box does hold that edge of the cheese a little bit more and keeps it in a very particular shape. We're letting it go just a little bit outside that diameter. So it will be slightly less tall than a Baron Bigod would be, looking kind of more at sort of a Brie-de-Meaux sort of shape to that. Not too, again, dramatically so. I don't want a really flat cheese. That's not what Baron Bigod is. But just a little bit wider with maybe a little bit more breakdown.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be great.
It's smelling really, really wonderful. I wish you could.
Oh, perfect.
We've all been around ours. I wish you could be around this one because I just am in love with it.
Oh, perfect. Well, very exciting. We'll move on to Manuel at George and Joseph. How are you? Cracking cheese shop up in the north of England.
Hi everyone. Yeah, we based in Leeds, North Yorkshire. So first time for me to mature some brie, sort of Brie-de-Meaux. So it's really nice, and thank you for letting us do this. So I'm used to the French brie style, and the purpose was to me to meet like a meeting between Yorkshire and Brie, and we are in a good area for beer, so I've decided to wash the Brie with a lovely stout. So, yeah.
Which brewery is it from?
Osforth Brewery, so based in Leeds.
Yep.
We are working a lot together for cheese tasting, cheese and beer tasting. And I've tried the Nightcrawler, that's the name of this stout. And then I've started bathing the breeze every day in that beer mix, salt, and I've added some Bacterium to the mix.
Oh, wow.
To get like those lovely wavy stuff on the rind. So I've got a picture for you, so it might be. Yeah.
It sounds like it's going to be nice and smelly.
I mean,
I can't wait.
I'm not after something too smelly.
Yeah.
I'm after something fairly, but at the moment it's chocolatey, smooth. That's a lovely flavor. It's not too punchy, so I would like something really delicate and elegant, something like with just like a touch. So I'm going to show you these. There I go.
That looks incredible.
Yeah. So I'm definitely a wizard apprentice with these. I'm just reading a lot. I'm sweating a lot. Opening, yeah. They are living in they are isolated in a fridge. I mean, everything is okay. I'm smelling them every day because, as we said, the smell is the first judge if it's not smelling nicely. Okay, so but at the moment everything is doing fine. So yeah, I do not know when I'm going to wrap them. I do not know if I want to keep it a bit moisty on the rind or make it dry.
Yeah,
it's gonna be. I don't know. I'm gonna follow my mood.
That's what I was going to ask. With your washing cycle, is it starting to dry out, or are you going? I was going to ask you if you're going for a sticky rind or a more dry rind, and for the M cheese, do you think it will be able to take any more washing after a few weeks as well? When will you stop?
I don't think I'm gonna keep passing them, but like every couple of days, just brushing them a tiny bit. If you let the cheese, I was not touching them for 2 days during the weekend, and the penicillium was like growing back on it, so I want to keep a nice balance. So yeah, I'm gonna keep brushing them here and there. So yeah, and finger crossed.
The high points for innovation.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'll move on to Andy from Courtyard Dairy. How are you, big fella?
No, Patrick, yeah, very well, thank you. Very good, very good.
What have you got in store for us?
Yeah, well, we've tinkered with Baron before, many pre-pandemic, and we thought we'd do the similar thing really. So it's like Emmanuel, it's washing, but just in salt water. But the difficulty we've had, or the difficulty we find, is that we used to have a dedicated space for washing rinds, which pre-pandemic, and we used to put the Barons in there at about the same age, and they would just go pink like that. But we got rid of that with the pandemic. It was just becoming a bit of getting in the way of everything as the pandemic took its own little shape or form. So we've just been trying to really get over that dominance of the white mold that Jonny kind of gears it up with, you know. So because obviously it's fairly geared up with a lot of that stuff in it. So it's trying to stop that dominate. So we're washing every 2 days for about 2 weeks, and really nice pink development. Didn't pink as well as the ones we did pre-pandemic, but the pigmentation, the color you get in a washed rind cheese is, I'm sure you know how deep that is, depends on the pH on the rind. So it's a fairly light pink, but it was pink enough. So we made the decision about 4 or 5 days ago that we were going to wrap and seal it up, really, because I felt like the rind was developed enough, and I just wanted to stop it over developing. When we have washed this cheese in the past, if we've kept it humid, and we've managed to keep these quite humid, one of the difficulties is it does mature fast. So for one of the things for me is that, you know, in a month's time, we're going to be tasting these cheeses, and I've just got to now keep it back a little bit, because otherwise I'm going to have something which is too big in a month's time. It's just because I've sped it on a little bit. So we've wrapped, and then what ideally I would have liked to have done if I'd had some thought is practice beforehand, because the wrap is the key for me, what we wrap it in and how we seal it up. So, you know, in the past we've wrapped in 2-ply, we've wrapped in thicker ones and into cardboard boxes, we've wrapped in thinner ones and into wooden boxes, and all of that does have an effect. At the moment, we've wrapped in 2-ply and put it into cardboard boxes and dropped the temperature down to 8 degrees. And that's really because we've got that nice rind on there. And what I want is the fat breaks it down to continue, but I don't want it to get too carried away and just too much ammonia development and too powerful. And so for me, it's just keeping our finger on that now. Now that rind's developed, really. We may go back and wash it at the end. If we're trying to slow it down in this middle period, in the idea that we can speed it up or slow it down at the end so that we can hit the nail on the head at the end rather than too fast. It's a bit of a guessing.
You don't want to do
really.
an arsenal, peak too early.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we are. But you know, we just want to do something different with it. The cheese is a very consistent, good cheese. Baron's fabulous as it comes into us. I don't think we could mature it any better than Jonny does. So let me stop that.
But a good opportunity for all the competitors to sort of play around with a product they know is a good product. Yeah. And just to have the ability to have that experimental element to the competition. So it's great to have that sort of new product development without the stress of having to take it to market, but
no,
the opportunities too as well.
We used to wash it, we used to call it the Red Baron, right? And we used to sell it in bits and pieces, and it was just a bit of an experimentation, but it was quite an interesting little thing. But the good thing for us at that stage is that when it was ready to sell, we just put it on the counter and sold it. Whereas the difficulty for us at this time is that if it gets ready too early, then I have to keep hold of it, you know. So I'm trying to hit a time with it being perfectly ripe, and that is more difficult than we've had in the past, because usually when it gets ripe, we just sell it and it's done, you know. And that's the skill, is actually hitting that date in perfect ripeness. I think that's the real crux of this maturation competition with this particular cheese, is having it right for the 14th of June. I think that's the interesting thing, as well as the rind development and maturation, but actually trying to get it, whether you make a soft cheese or a white rinded cheese or a washed rinded cheese or whatever you do with this cheese, is getting it right for that one day, you know. And I think that's actually one of the interesting things of this competition.
And that's definitely what we're worried about at the time, because obviously, like you said, you know, everyone brings on their Baron at different times, so they want to be hitting that right point. And if they hit it too early, then, you know, it's legs. And if it doesn't come on too well, I suppose if you've got that extra time to bring it on quickly before the competition, it's always the best way. So cold and slow for a few weeks, huh?
Yeah, that's what we're going to cold and slow for a few weeks, then reevaluate probably early June. We'll keep an eye on it till then and decide what we're going to do for the last 2 weeks.
Oh, sounds very exciting. Well, I'll cross over to Camille. How are you?
Hi everybody. My connection's awful, so bear with me in the shop. But yeah, we're maturing in the Borough Market shop, if you've all been. So we kind of are just working with the space that we have. So we have where the slate is, just kind of 12 to 14 degrees, high humidity. We have a cabinet where we keep the Caerphillies, the Berkswell, the Yoredale, so those kinds of territorials. And that's a small wooden room, high humidity, kind of a little warmer, 12, 13 degrees. And then the cold room where it's like 3 degrees, 80%-ish. And so we kind of had them in the cabinet on a rack, kind of monitored the rind development, flipped them every day, had a really nice rind. So we wrapped them and boxed them in wood wool and put them in the cold room cold since last Friday. And now we're just turning them every day and keeping an eye on them. I think Tessa, who's just with me, and I are just very much going with the flow of these are the temperatures and environments we have. The tools we have are paper and boxes, and we'll just work with them and see what happens. But yeah, it's cool. And I think it's in the cold room is where we keep all our softs, and it's another kind of little closet. So everyone's hanging out together. So it's nice that it's always been in contact with other cheeses. So hopefully like all that environment and the kind of biomes thriving. But yeah,
It's very
hopefully you
exciting.
heard some of that, because I don't know if internet's working at all.
That's okay, but it's great to see that the actual cheese in the make is a snapshot in time and the season and what the cows are eating and all those lovely things that go into it, and then the maturation is the biome and the care and love and the time and patience that goes into it. So yeah, it's really exciting to have everyone involved in the competition, and yeah, it's great to see some innovation as well, and some tried and true tested skills as well too, which is great. So for Johnny, would you have any questions?
I think Patrick's cut out. Is Patrick cut out for other people?
He was then going to ask me a question. Wasn't
Yeah,
he?
well, I asked you a question, Johnny. What type of weight loss do you expect in the first little period of the maturation?
You'll only be losing well, yeah, that's difficult. Probably sort of 2-3% from when it's boxed, you know, to the point where we wrap it and box it to like when you would have it. I must admit, off the top of my head, I don't know from the moment the cheese is salted to when it's boxed. Let me just think. You've got you're probably looking about 5 to 10% loss between the cheese coming from the make room to being boxed, if that makes any.
Yeah. And do you find, I mean, do you measure, I don't know whether you've done this, but I find that weight loss for us kind of stops. I only know hard cheeses really, we never really, don't really measure it on the softs, but once we get rind development, weight loss really then just doesn't stop, but it really slows down. It's the same true of soft cheeses. Once that mold is formed, does that kind of protect?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that once that mold sort of covers the cheese, the weight loss is very minimal. Then you know, it's we weighed it from the time when you wrap it to when you eat it, and there's hardly any difference. It does lose a teeny bit, but yeah, most of the weight loss is in that first sort of 4 or 5 week, I suppose.
I think Patrick's back on, so I think that's answered my questions. Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks, Andy, for jumping in. I don't know what happened then, just cut out. So you all froze.
That's all right.
Mid-sentence. Well, I'll throw it over to the people that are on the call as well. If you've got any questions, flick it through in the webinar chat, and we'll pop it to the competitors or to Johnny, and yeah, see how we get on. And Laura, the most approachable wholesaler MD there is. If anyone's at the competition, be sure to say hello.
That's really, really kind of you. I'm going to hold you to that and pay you the tenner later.
Let me just bring up the Q&As. Oh, I'm not getting any questions in.
I would just say, like, the one thing what we did touch on earlier was the importance of the paper. I don't know, do you want me to say what we do, or is that too much giving, you know, like, should we just let people get on with it?
No, go on.
Well, we've found, I mean, Andy touched on what you wrap the cheese in, and it does have a huge effect. It's amazing. Everything has a huge effect. You know, just putting one paper to the next. But we've done many things to think we could save time or cost, but we always go back to the same. It's we wrap the cheese once it's fully bloomed up, so everything's covered in white mold of some sort. We wrap it in a more breathable paper, which is actually burger paper. So it's the same stuff they put in between burgers. And we wrap the cheese in that to begin with. And then before we then put it in the box. And then before we sell it, we then wrap it again into a wax paper. And the wax paper matures the cheese quicker. The burger paper just has the right balance for us between the two papers. We've found that if you wrap it in burger paper in wax paper straight away, the cheese matures faster and you don't get quite as nice a flavor come from the cheese. It's too in your face. There's not enough depth. There's not enough behind once you've got that cheese in your mouth, it's sort of like bang, and then it sort of goes. So it's amazing, but the difference between papers is big.
It all matters, doesn't it? Definitely. There's a question in here from Ian for Emmanuel. So why did Emmanuel choose a stout to wash the cheese in?
First, I would say because I like it. So I feel like it's I really like the brie for this gentle, smooth, buttery flavor. And it's exactly the same with the beer. So, and I feel like I'm just living in Yorkshire since 2 years. I'm living here in UK since 2 years. So it's definitely something that was catching me, this the personality of the Yorkshire beer. There is something fairly dark and hard, and it's really smooth and gentle, like the Yorkshire people. So this is why I've chosen.
That's a great reason. Yeah, it's always good to bring a little bit of your own terroir to the competition and that local insight, definitely. And I would have connotations of stout being a Christmassy, chocolatey, lovely something that I would have at Christmas with something fruitcake and a lot of butter. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really nice for when you got that cold, windy weather in Yorkshire, having a stout. Yeah,
and a big chunk of cheese. Perfect. And another question was the burger paper. What is it exactly? It was from Mary. So I'm assuming it's what sort of elements is there? Any sort of paper, plastics, or anything in it as well, or is it just pure paper? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
I think it is mostly paper. It is what you have on burgers. So if you've ever been anywhere for a barbecue and you get the burger out and it's sort of got a paper attached to it, that it's the same product. There could be different burger papers, so be careful. But it just allows a little bit of chance to breathe in the cheese breathes a little, and it allows, because when we put it in the box, we bring it down to a cooler temperature at that point, and it just slows things down. Things go slower. So we've matured the cheese in all sorts of temperatures, but if you make the cheese mature too fast, you just get these like big punchy flavors with no depth of flavor. So the burger paper works really well with the box in allowing the cheese to breathe. It doesn't get over wet, and you get this condensation inside the paper. So you don't get that with burger paper. But the downside of burger paper is if you leave it on too long, the cheese starts eating it. It disappears.
Nice. So how long does that stay wrapped in the burger paper for?
2 to 3 weeks, three weeks probably.
Perfect. Oh, brilliant. That's very exciting. Well, we're just about towards the end of the call. So any further questions for Jonny while he's here? Ask now, forever hold your peace. Perfect. Well, we'll wrap it up tonight. Thanks very much, everyone, for your time. It was an absolute pleasure to see you all, and best of luck for the competition.
Thank you, Patrick and Johnny.
Okay, very exciting.
Thanks,
Take care,
Good
guys.
luck.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.